Like, subscribe, follow Rocky the Dog Show, your host, Joe Vinny. Let's watch this video. Very interesting on Biden's cover-up.
Right, whatever X is, fill in that. But this is like, I guess, like a law and order case where you've got to prove that Neera Tanden or whomever, any of the people on that list, did something without his knowledge, and then he would have to confirm that. As much as I kind of enjoy what Comer is doing, I honestly think that this is going to be really hard to prove because none of them are going to come clean on this.
Yeah. Well, the one thing we have learned, for anybody that was confused, is that Dr. Jill Biden did not get a degree in medicine. That's not what doctor means in all of this. You're spot on. I think it is hard to reverse anything he did, but it is important to learn so that then we can start going down and saying, all right, what policies do we really need to look at to reverse? Because now we're in charge. We can do this based off maybe actions the president didn't know. But your point is really hard to prove.
Either of you, other of you. I mean, I love what we're doing, but I just don't get the sense. Biden's never.
I want to say God put Donald Trump in office, but God's mercy has a point. I hope they get with it and take advantage of the second chance America got. And they need to do this quickly. They need to be working, tirelessly round the clock for the first year. They haven't even ratified, anything that executive orders that are done. They haven't brought any resolution to the table, not one. In the first 100 days of the Biden administration, Pelosi put 11 resolutions forward. Our Congress has not put one. They need to get with it.
We're going to admit that he didn't know what he was doing, right?
I think, okay, so there was 4,200, there's like over 4,000 pardons or clemency that was granted under Biden, especially in that last month. Some of them were child rapists, just horrific criminals that he granted pardons to. And I would like to know, like, did he go through and read when they had that last batch of who those people were? Like, was that really him? Was it somebody else who said, oh, these are good people, just go ahead, we'll put the auto pin on it. Yeah, that's fine. Like, especially now, given the book that Jake Tapper has written, and he didn't have his mental capacity, can we go back and look at that time frame just to see? Because it's really disgusting what this man did to the country.
I get that, Ashley, but here's my concern. In order to prove that, right, you'd have to say, hey, here's the role. Here's 4,000 people you pardoned. Did you actually know you were pardoning them? And it's not like he's going to say no. He'll say, of course I did. They gave me a list. I approved it, right? I mean, he's not like, I just can't see a scenario where he goes, you got me. You got me. I don't even know who this is. What day of the week is it, right? In order to prove this, they have to admit their complicity in this. And this is like, and that crushes, the whole house has to fall down. And I can't imagine like that they will admit this. Like, this to me is, I think more to David's point, I feel like at least it shows us what we need to be looking out for in the future. But I'm just skeptical. And I wish it was not the case. I mean, I want this to work. I just have a hard time that anyone on Team Biden, whether it's the Biden family themselves or his top aides, are going to admit this.
Before you blame burnout, consider this. Neuroscientists and
mental competency as well. So, and they have to do all of this under oath. So either way, they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And I think some of that needs to be exposed, and they need to be held accountable, and they need to testify under oath what they knew and when they knew it.
Yeah. Stephen, do you have any hope for this?
Well, yes and no. I got a thought and then two lawyers that came on my show. So my thought is, a thought and two lawyers. A thought and two lawyers. That's a t-shirt. So my thought is, just like you can follow the money trail to the corruption, you could probably there's got to be some kind of written trail on executive orders, a written trail on these individuals. I mean, some of these they're going to have to look at, like, why was a pedophile? Why was a Chinese spy? Why was Hunter Biden to a specific date? Dr. Fauci, his brother, none of these people were convicted of crimes. Some of them were convicted of terrible crimes. And then the two lawyers, I had Alan Dershowitz on my show. He said on the hard side, yes, you could prove that Joe Biden has mental incapabilities now, but could you say on August 23rd of 2024, he was mentally incapable? Right. That's where it's going to be hard to say on this specific day he was out of his mind and didn't use his authority. On the other side, you have Mike Howell, the president of the Oversight Project. He told me what they're planning to do is individually sue Dr. Fauci and some of these others. Then they'll pull it into court, remove it from the group of AutoPen people to the individual, and then they will drag them through the court. And then the court will have to decide whether that pardon was good or not. So I think we're going to have to see an individual lawsuit. Everyone will have to have their day in court, which means the White House is going to say 99% of these people, it's not worth the government's time. But these 4 or 5 people, we absolutely want the truth. That's where it gives me a little bit of hope.
See, that's what I see. The funny thing is, remember, Biden screwed Trump when he came in and allowed the FBI and all this stuff to go after President Trump, not waive immunity. And that what's good for the goose is going to come back for the gander. I know David Hogg, the sort of nutty little DNC vice chair, I think he's officially kicked off the other day, but he was talking about one of these individuals that I mentioned, Anthony Burnell, who is the former assistant to the president and chief of staff or senior advisor to the first lady, that he was actually like really, really powerful. I want to play you guys just a clip to get you a sense of like, this is blue on blue. This is David Hogg describing the power of one of these individuals. Take a look.
Foundational question for me is like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden, well, the president of the United States?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue was like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the level. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Burnell.
Okay, did you hear that? Anthony Burnell. I would avoid him. He's scary. That to be describing the first lady, senior advisor, and chief of staff as a scary individual with power, and you know how much power Jill Biden had. That's, if I were to, I would use the strategy that Stephen Gardner laid out, David Avella, and say, let's get this guy and isolate him and find out what he knew.
Good strategy. Let me also add, though, I don't think Joe Biden is given enough credit for taking Kamala Harris out of the question for 2028. There's a whole group of contenders now who don't have to worry about her. You know, here's the challenge for the Democratic Party right now. They are run by college university presidents, right-wing or crazy environmental activists, and amongst the public union bosses. That's who's running the Democratic Party right now, pushing agendas that the majority of Americans have said, we don't want that. And until they find somebody who wants to focus on the economic and personal security concerns of Americans, it doesn't matter what they do. They're not winning elections.
All right. I want to get into another sort of, we talked about Elon for a second. There's like a personal pet peeve of mine, which is defunding NPR and PBS, using tax dollars. Like, stop using this. Brandon Gill had an interaction with the CEO of NPR, and I want to play you just a sense of how he went at how they run that place. Take a look.
What you hear from Catherine Marr today is the last dying whimper of an antiquated organization that's about to have their corporate welfare pulled away from them. The American people are sick of their tax dollars funding radical left, wildly Marxist news outlets who hate the very things that this country was built on. During that hearing, I had the chance to ask her, do you believe that, for instance, America is addicted to white supremacy? She said, well, you know, I didn't really say that. Yes, you did actually say that. These people are insane, and we shouldn't be giving them our tax dollars. We're finally going to stop that. I'm so glad that we have a president who is taking this seriously. This is something that Republicans have been talking about for decades, and President Trump is finally doing it. And I can tell you, we're going to follow it up with Congress with rescission bills that permanently pull this money back.
Want to try tirzepatide? So this is terzepatide.
Hanging fruit. If you're going to prove that you're serious about cutting spending and you can't do this, then you can't do anything. If you can't cut this. But here's where I'll differ from Brandon Gill. I think a lot of people on the right want to defund PBS and NPR because of their content, right? That they spew left-wing ideology and narratives. I agree with that. But I'm more opposed ideologically. Why is government in the news business? I don't care. Frankly, if they were supporting, if this was Breitbart, I'd say defund it as well. Make your Hollywood elite friends pay for this. I don't want it, not because of I don't like their bias and I don't like what they do, but I don't understand why as a taxpayer, you're telling me go to work every day and help fund a left-wing news organization. Full stop. No way. And I think this is, to me, is the new threshold litmus test for House Republicans. If you don't defund this, don't come talk to me about fiscal responsibility ever again.
I complete with you 100,000,000%. I don't think there should be any taxpayer funded media of any type, of any, shape or form, especially now that there are social media platforms where government officials or whoever can go directly to the people through those platforms. We don't need government funded media. Also, the fact that they have reported so egregiously, the Hunter Biden laptop, they should not be surprised. And the fact that the conservatives would even hesitate to defund them is absolutely outrageous. I am grateful for Brandon Gill. And if you look at him compared to David Hogg, the future looks bright for the conservative party compared to the left. That's a shining light. And quite frankly, NPR and all these groups, they can get their funding from maybe George Soros.
Yeah, I just don't, to me, Stephen Gardner, I've heard over and over again, fiscal responsibility, balance the budget, we've got to do this. And then somehow there's always an excuse why NPR and PBS continued to get funded. It's not a ton of money in the big scheme of things. But like I said, to me, it's a threshold issue.
Yeah, you called it the low-hanging fruit. This is the rotten fruit that's already on the ground. You pick it up, you turn it over, you go, wait a minute, there's worms in here, and you throw it away. I don't listen to NPR. They're obviously left-wing propaganda at this point. As somebody that pays a lot of money in taxes, it really frustrates me when I see how stupidly our government officials spend my money and your money. Everybody on this panel pays taxes, right? So why is my conservative tax money going to fund things like the New York Times, Politico, AP, that then write these awful, horrible things about me, my party, my president, family values? That's not what I'm paying taxes for. So for me, it's really bothersome. When it comes to PBS, I grew up on Sesame Street, but Sesame Street is not the same. The Sesame Street I was getting.
Stephen, I just want to be clear on this because I've had this fight for years. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, right? Sesame Street is owned by the Children's Television Network. Big Bird is a millionaire. They licensed that show to PBS. Sesame Street is just a licensed show, the same as the Stephen Gardner show or the Sean Spicer show that we could license to a thing. Big Bird, Oscar the Grouch are millionaires. They make so much money on merch. This is not some little thing that they do and for the good of the American people. That show makes millions and millions of dollars on licensing deals. And so I find the Democrat argument all the time that you're going to take Sesame Street away. No, you're not. It's a licensed show.
It also points out this discussion about the role of the increasing civic journalism, where you do have nonprofits that are funding media outlets to, one, report the news, and two, it may have a slant to the left or to the right. And it all goes to PBS and NPR don't have to go away. They may need to find new funding sources. And of course, many of them would try to make the case, we only get a small percentage of our budget from the federal government. Okay, fine. Then you figured out ways to monetize your networks. Go do that. And let's get the government out of funding it.
Right. Speaking of getting the government out of funding, President Trump yesterday really going after Harvard on a multitude of fronts. But there was a clip that got shown to me. This all started because of their anti-Semitic issues on campus. There was a clip of the students in Harvard at their graduation ceremony a year ago, 2024. I just want to play you guys a second of this because I think that when you look at where the nexus of all this, where it stems from, this is part of the problem. Take a look at their graduation ceremony from 2024.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget it.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Ciara thanks her loved ones for supporting her in building a morally consistent and just world. She says, Harvard, divest, free Palestine.
Noah Safaria.
Noah thanks her chosen family who have supported her during her time at HDS. Her future includes making music and protesting empire.
Okay, that's their graduation ceremony. But when you step back and think about it for a second, the entire ceremony isn't about them and their graduation. It's about like turning this into a free Palestine protest movement. One student's talking about what to read, what music to listen to. But this has been basically, and I think this is where the Trump guys, I hope, are coming from, which is this is a top-down problem. The university has allowed this to occur, has actually encouraged this thought and this mindset. People, if you're educated and you don't remember what happened in October, that Israel was attacked, unprovoked, killing innocent people, taking innocent people hostage, then I question your actual teaching methods at Harvard. The idea that these kids, this university, these professors have allowed this thought to occur explains the problem, Ashley. This is the problem to me. And I think I don't want my tax dollars funding this kind of pervasive thought.
Well, these elite institutions have major, major problems. First of all, if you go back to COVID, when the students were locked out of the classrooms, I'm sure you have some students who are now, oh, good, I get to go finish my education, only to not be allowed to go to class because there are protests that are taking place, preventing them from getting into their classrooms. They've allowed this corrupt culture to take place. Now those kids are, leaving the institutions after getting millions of dollars in taxpayer funding to have tons of student debt. And it's like this, the entire elite higher education institutions are completely corrupt, and they are not serving the students and doing what they're originally intended to do. And so until there's a complete overhaul, and I credit Linda McMahon for everything that she's doing and taking on these issues along with President Trump. I mean, Harvard needs to take a page from Columbia book, back down, and start making some negotiations, because this isn't working. This is an 80-20 issue. Yep. 80-20 issue. In Ohio, the left is trying to qualify a ballot initiative to restore DEI. Please put that on the ballot for 2026. I would love to campaign on that issue, because you're going to continue to lose.
Stephen Gardner, president yesterday in the Oval Office, kind of making this point about Harvard. Take a listen to how he framed it.
Do it. I mean, people with 1,600 on their boards don't get in, and they're letting people in, and they're bragging about how they're teaching them basic mathematics. Where do these people come from? So we have to look at the list, and Harvard has to understand the last thing I want to do is hurt them. They're hurting themselves. They're fighting. Columbia has been really, they were very, very bad what they've done. They're very anti-Semitic and lots of other things. But they're working with us on finding a solution. And, they're taking off that hot seat. But Harvard wants to fight. They want to show how smart they are. And they're getting their ass kicked. Thank you very much, everybody.
That was such a mic drop moment at the end of that. They're getting their ass kicked, but he's right. These guys, they're taking in a third of the student body's Chinese. They're not teaching them the right things. They're teaching them remedial math, and there are people, U.S. citizens, on the wait list trying to get in, and yet we're prioritizing Chinese students.
Yeah, so I have a couple of issues with this. Again, I pay a lot of money in taxes. Why is my money going to fund a university, a high-level university with over $1 billion they just don't want to take out of the stock market? Why does my money have to supplement them so they can stay in the stock market? Number two, they're just teaching left-wing ideology, woke stuff, DEI, teaching that white men are bad and black lesbians are at the bottom of the food chain. Like, I don't want that being taught. And then number three, how come Americans can't get into this elite university because you guys are so desperate for cash? You have to keep bringing in all of these foreign people. So my money is actually subsidizing foreign nations getting a better education than American citizens. All of those reasons bother me.
Feels like the end of a
So
Shark
true.
Tank. For all those reasons, I'm out. And I kind of, David Avella, I agree with Stephen on this. I'm like, why are we, like, we end up subsidizing these universities. They're allowing like a third of the class to come from China. And he's right. It's always about the money because they'll pay full fare. But you've got, it's all tethered back to the CCP. So we're literally being like, hey, do you want to be trained by the best in the business to learn how to beat us in the future? Let's have you come to Harvard. We'll train you, and then you get to go back to China. So then you eventually can come try to, use unfair trade practices, help build up your military to attack us or threaten us. Like, how stupid are we?
Well, Sean, you may remember I'm on the board of governors for Shepherd University, Notre Dame on the Potomac River. So I do have a little insight into this funding that's going on at universities, particularly the elite versus the small schools and the battle that they're facing just to stay in existence. But think about this for a second. In the last 4 years, the elite universities have taken more money from foreign governments than they did in the previous 40 years. And the biggest recipient of foreign dollars? Harvard University.
When lives depend on physical strength and mental sharpness.
In fact, the University of Penn is under investigation right now by Linda McMahon and the Department of Education for not reporting the foreign government money that they're taking. And Americans ought to know how much money these universities are taking from foreign governments. Because to think it doesn't have an impact, it does have an impact. And we should know that. And that ultimately universities have to be giving kids an education that prepares them to go out into the workforce. And so often, many of these programs are far from that.
Yeah, actually, Marco Rubio is targeting foreign nationals that he believes. He's basically saying, if you're from China, you're not coming to our country, not just with Harvard, but overall. And he's actually starting to say, hey, we're actually going to be a lot harder about who you come into this country. And again, I finally go, why haven't we been doing this? Why haven't we been looking at the people who are coming to our country and figuring out if their motives are good or bad?
Well, and I believe the secretary said he's going to be revoking some of those student visas.
Yeah.
Those, the Chinese students who are coming in, and which I think is a step in the right direction. What a lot of people don't realize, and I'm sure David is familiar with too, they set up these institutes on college campuses to completely permeate all of the education that our kids are receiving to be aligned with the CCP. And it is a complete step back for our country. And it's not doing any service. We wonder why the job force right now, the workforce of these young kids coming into the markets, they can't do anything. And they're checked out and they want to, not show up or show up late. And it's like, it's completely different. And we have to reform this. And I have to give Linda McMahon so much credit and President Trump for making this a top priority.
Well, that's smart because, of course, she used to be the chairman of the America First Policy Institute as well, and my former boss at the America First PAC. So let's give Linda all the credit she deserves. I always end Thursdays with the winner and loser of the week. Ashley, you're the veteran here. Who did really well this week? Who didn't?
Okay, so Linda McMahon, since I already said it, because she's the best and we love her. And the big loser is Jill Biden, the worst wife and the worst first lady on the planet.
God, I did not see. Well, I thought the Linda one coming, but not this. Stephen Gardner, thank you for joining us. Tell me who you thought had a really good week and who the loser is.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, follow, comment. Please, I read the comments. I'll comment back to you. Take care. God bless. Have a great day.